Well, hey everybody, Andy Kvernen here with another Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional. Back when I was in high school, I loved to sing, and I was a part of a madrigal group, not unlike the one here at Marshfield High School, and I loved being a part of it. I had a lot of pride in it, and I just loved the whole environment, getting to do what we got to do. And at one point, our director picked a song that our whole group really latched onto. It was an arrangement by the King's Singers of the Beatles song Yesterday, and it's a great melody, great lyrics, and I had a great time singing it. And there was a tenor solo in that song, and I thought, I want that solo. And I sort of considered myself a leader in the group. I was always on time. I was always hardworking and intense and focused on what we were doing. And I had a pretty decent voice, and so I thought, you know what? I think I deserve that solo. That's the one solo out of any solo in the history of solos that I wanted. And I thought, you know what? I deserve that. And I made it known as best I could to the director that I'd like that solo. And on the day when it came that he chose the soloist for that piece, I was shocked when he chose somebody else. And in fact, he chose a guy that was in my friend group, and yet a guy who I just didn't feel like was as dedicated, and I felt like I deserved it more than he did. And I was really upset. And I remember actually talking to the director, imagine that, right? And telling him that, and getting sort of an indifferent response like, hey, bless your heart, you don't know what you're talking about, and this is the way it's going to be. And I just remember being disappointed by that. And it reminds me of one of the parables in the book of Matthew as we come to Matthew chapter 20 in our daily Bible reading today. And it's the parable of the vineyard owner and the workers. And of course, you've perhaps read it on our daily Bible reading. If you haven't signed up for that, click on the link below and get signed up and start reading the Bible with us. It's a great opportunity, great exercise. But anyways, the vineyard owner hires workers during the day, and he hires the first group in the morning, and then he hires some about every 3 hours throughout the day until finally about 5 o'clock in the evening, he hires the last group of workers, and they only work for an hour. And the time comes when the manager is ready to pass out the wages, and they would pay at the end of the day, not at the end of 2 weeks like we do often in our culture. And so as we come to that, there's an expectation. The guys that got hired early in the day are thinking, okay, let's see what happens here. And the guys that got hired last get paid first, and they get paid a denarius. And a denarius is about a day's wages. And so for guys that only worked an hour, that's a generous wage. And so the guys at the beginning, who started at the beginning of the day, are thinking, you know what? We've been here the whole time. We deserve this. We've worked hard throughout the day, through the heat of the sun. Wow, I bet we're going to get paid really well today. And they get sort of excited. But then as the wages are passed out, of course, what happens is that each group gets paid the same thing until the guys at the very end, who worked at the very beginning throughout the whole day, get their wage. And they only receive one denarius. They receive the same as the guys who worked for an hour. And verse 11 says, when they received it, they began to grumble against the landowner. I think about my grumbling against my choir director when I was in high school. They grumbled against the landowner. They thought they deserved this. And it says, verse 12, these who were hired last worked only 1 hour, they said, and you've made them equal to us who've borne the burden of the work and the heat of the day. But he answered one of them, I'm not being unfair to you, friend. Didn't you agree to work for a denarius? Isn't this what you signed up for? Take your pay and go. I want to give to the one who is hired last the same as I gave you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money? Or are you envious because I'm generous? So the last will be first, and the first will be last. Now, what's the point of this parable? Certainly, it's not to diminish the role of hard work. It's not to say that employers can just treat their employees unfairly, but it is to say that our God, who rewards us for our good works. In fact, 1 Corinthians 3 tells us that. Not for salvation. Works have nothing to do with salvation, but they do have something to do with eternal reward. And we don't know what that reward is going to be. All we're called to do is be faithful with what God has put in front of us, and to trust God for the results, to trust God for the reward. And God delights in rewarding His children, but we can't cling to our own rights in that process. And as we look around at the people around us in the church, it's easy to get judgmental, It's easy to think, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and those people, they're only doing one thing, they're not even serving at all, or whatever it may be. Boy, God, you sure owe me, and I can't wait to see what you're going to come up with. We get that attitude sometimes. Friends, I'm here to remind you, you're not the choir director. Only God is. And as I think back to my experience in high school, I think about the guy that got the solo. You know what the reality is now that I have about 25, 30 more years of experience behind me? He was the right guy for the solo. He had the best voice for it. And not only that, but he also mattered in our choir. And I thought I was a big deal. I thought I was the one who deserved everything because I did X, Y, and Z. But you know what? He was a person. And the choir director knew that. And the choir director wanted to encourage him in ways that I knew he wanted to encourage me as well. But this guy, he wasn't running around entitled, but it was a blessing for him to get the solo. And if I was the choir director, now I'd do the same thing 100 times over. Friends, we can trust God. God knows what's best. And I didn't lose anything in that experience. I continued to grow. My friend continued to grow. And we can trust that God has His purpose and His plan for us. As we faithfully serve Him together, we can leave the reward up to Him. Let's do that, and I'm convinced we'll be more content in the process. God bless you, friends. Have a great day, and Lord willing, we'll see you again soon on the Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional.